link out. Bear with me. Where do I do that? Copy link. I think I'd be better at this by now, but I'm not. There we go. Send it there. Got a couple people in. Send it. Just sending this link out. Let's see, where do I else want to send this? Let's send it here. Bear with me. Just sending this link out, letting some people join in. Let's send it there. And then last but not least, one more. All right, guys. Thanks for joining me. Week 7 here, War Room After Dark. My name's Clay Hodges. Follow me on Twitter at NotDuckHodges. But right now I am banned for some reason. I think it's because I made fun of both Biden and Trump. They're asking me, they said they will call me with an access code so I can confirm my account. And when I click accept, it doesn't call me. So I don't know what's going on. But I'm still there. I'll be back eventually whenever Twitter decides that. Whatever. I think that's why they did it. Who knows why they did it. Let's see here. So go through about 6 or 7 games this week here at goingfor2.com. Check me out. This week I didn't do my stacks. I apologize. Things got away from me. Let's kind of just jump into this week. Before we go into the games, I think the big thing this week is there's just so much value with the injuries mounting up last second. So I think the cash lineup kind of just builds itself, to be honest. You can also use that in GPPs. I think a lot of people will for single entry or mass multi-entry, or the 3 max. So we'll talk a little bit about that strategy, what I think. Towards the end, I'll try to get back to it. But I think if you're playing the main slate, I think there's probably 4 to 5 pieces that should be owned for cash and will be highly owned for the tournaments, and picking and choosing which ones to do, which ones to leverage off of, I think will be key. But let's jump into the first game I want to touch on, to be the Panthers at the Saints. Saints are about a touchdown favorite. Totals at a modest 51 points. And here we have our first a couple obvious plays, I think. So Michael Thomas is out. Emmanuel Sanders is out. So makes Alvin Kamara. He does really well when Thomas is out. Also, Jared Cook is their most reliable pass catcher, still healthy. And then Traquan Smith is their de facto number 1. He's pretty cheap on DraftKings. I think he's $4,000, something like that. So all those 3 are pretty much in play. To me, this game will probably be a little bit closer, but I think Kamara's in the best spot. To me, just the Panthers are one of the worst against the run. Kamara this year, with Thomas being out, has just been the best running back. So I think that's going to continue. He'll get his through the air and on the ground. It should be a pretty big game for him. And then it's always funny with the Saints and their defense. They're pretty good, but they're still leaking, especially in the back end. Marshawn Lattimore has this, the last couple of years, after a rookie year where he shut everyone down and looked to be like an all-pro corner, last couple of years he's inconsistent, like one of the most inconsistent ones. Like, he will shut down people like Mike Evans every time, but then get burned in routine games. And I'm not sure if he'll be on Robbie or DJ Moore, but I think the Panthers are good enough from a coaching standpoint to scheme both of them open. So I both think they'll get their fair share. Mike Davis can obviously still be in play. I think he's about 6,500, 6,800 on DraftKings. He's still in play until McCaffrey comes back. So I think this is a pretty good spot. In those cash games, Kamara will be pretty popular. I'll be thinking probably not in cash or anything like that, plenty of Panthers, but tournaments, DJ, Robbie, Mike, I think are some good plays. So just kind of mixing and matching there. And we'll go back to that, because I think in the chalky tournament plays, you will see you'll see Kamara, Cook, or Traquan. Those will be three of like the 5 or 6 most common pieces you'll see in a tournament lineup, and for good reason. I don't hate any of them. I think they're all good plays, but we got to figure out other ways to leverage. And one such game I think would be the Browns at the Bengals. Browns are favored by about 3 points. I apologize if these lines are a little bit old. I haven't updated them in a couple days. Total's right around 50 points. The Bengals are in a really good spot. Browns are decimated by injuries on defense. To me, with Joe Mixon being out, we got another one of these common plays will be Gio Bernard. I think Kamara, Bernard are going to be probably the two big, like that'll be the most common two running backs you'll see in DraftKings tournaments. But I think here a good leverage spot is to go to the passing game with Burrow. He's passed, I think, for 300 yards in 4 of his first 6 games. I mean, he's a legit, really good QB as a rookie. And then the Browns are just not good in the secondary. So that opens up. The only problem is how to figure out who to play. Boyd's consistent, but he's just doesn't get there unless he gets, his 7 to 8 catches. T. Higgins has looked great, but then last week AJ Green, the corpse of AJ, showed up and got so I think like 100 yards, 90 yards, something like that. So that's the only tough place to gauge. Boyd's the safest. I'd probably then go T. Higgins because I think the Browns struggle with the speed back there, but really anyone can do it. So if you could play Burrow with Gio, that'd probably be a good tournament strategy. But to me, a good leverage spot here is to try to go that passing attack. And then on the Browns side, they are favored here. So if that pans out the way it would be Kareem Hunt on the ground. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Even if they get behind, he's pretty safe just because of his pass catching prowess. So keep that in mind. And then with Hooper being out, Njoku isn't one of my top 6 chalk plays, but people will go there. I'm still trying to figure out if I want to or not, but he's cheap. He doesn't have to do much, but Njoku's been the tight end for the last couple years, and he's just never done it. So I don't know why he's going to do it now. It's tough for me, but he doesn't have to do much. So I'm still weighing whether I'm gonna go there. I just with so much value around for fantasy and DFS, I don't think you necessarily have to get there. So something to keep in mind with Njoku, and also another point is, and I think it's Bryant, their third string, now their second string tight end. They're very high on draft him, the 4th round out of Florida International, I believe. He could get half the work. So Njoku's, I think, riskier than a lot of people are letting on. Probably wouldn't be for me in cash. I'll maybe have a sprinkle of them in some tournaments, but we'll see. Let me check the chat. Hey, for the first time, not getting blown up. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in. I try to not look at the chat because it distracts me, but I'll answer any questions as we try to get towards the end here. Of the Falcons at the Lions at the Falcons, which is I think one of the highest games. Total about 57. Falcons favored by a touchdown. This one gonna be pretty good. I think before the value opened up, I think DeAndre Swift was going to be pretty popular, and to me that would have been a good stay away, avoid situation because he's still splitting the backfield three ways. He got there last week. But to me, I think it's still, until he just completely takes over, Peterson's still going to get his 15 carries right into the middle there for 3 yards, and he'll get the touchdown or goal line work. So that's tough. So while I think that obviously the Falcons can be attacked all over, just with the running backs there is something I would stay away from. But I do like the passing attack. Stafford, Galladay. I won't play Marvin Jones. I haven't yet. He didn't do it last week. One of these weeks he's going to go off for 3 touchdowns, and that'll be it for the year for him. Hawkinson, I'd like, but on DraftKings, I think he's about $5,000, and with the value we'll be alluding to, we already talked about Njoku. I'd rather just pay up for Kelsey or pay down a little bit. Hawkinson's a good tight end, but he's He's priced like a top 3, top 5 tight end, and he's just not there yet. So a little risky, but if that keeps people off, maybe I'll go there. And then obviously with the Falcons, you know what to do. Gurley's actually in the best spot, but with just I think he's about 6,000 ish. With all the value opening up below him, it's tough for me to really want to pay for him because he does have to get into the end zone just because he does split the work there. But Matt Ryan, Julio Ridley always makes sense. You don't need to listen to me to know that. They're still kind of really priced up. And Matt Ryan, I think last week I kind of, wrote his eulogy for him where I thought he might be done for the year. And he finally came to play. We'll see. We'll see if they can continue it up for 2 weeks or if they just got up for their new coach. But Julio and Ridley are in a good spot. There's just so many good plays here. They're priced so high. I think they're both priced as like top 5 wide receivers. Really tough for me to digest that and be comfortable. But wouldn't blame anybody there. Another good game. Packers at Texans, and this one will be interesting. Something to monitor midnight when Schefter tweets out, his injury updates, or if we have to wait till an hour and a half before kickoff tomorrow. Aaron Jones was in a really good spot, but the last I heard, he's more doubtful than questionable. And if he's out, then Jamal Williams he gets up there with Kamara and Gio, and those would be the 1 through 3 running backs being played by almost everybody. Don't blame you for doing that, because Williams would be in a good spot too, and he's a pass catcher, so he has a high floor, and I think he's cheap, 4,000 or something. I mean, he's a no-brainer. Him and Gio be very interesting there, but this total is 57. Should be a shootout. So whether you play Williams and add in someone like Adams and Rodgers, or if you go off of Williams and play Rodgers and Adams, I think you want a piece of this game. Houston's tough for me. A lot of people are assuming this is going to be one of the highest scoring games. Green Bay has so far this year average defense, but last year they were top 5-ish, I believe, and Jair Alexander is playing like a shutdown corner, which will shut down Will Fuller, which I think is the only reliable piece. David Johnson has a good matchup, but he's just not showing he has the juice and the legs to really get it for you every week. So a little tough for me. I think a lot of people will go Watson, Cooks. Yeah, Cooks. Sorry, Brandon. To me, that right now they're on the outside looking in for my overall builds. So just maybe a leverage spot for me, because I think people just blindly look at the totals there, and I think the Packers can play up for this game, especially they're a 3.5 point favorite, but I mean they just got blown out by the Bucks, and so the real line, if they would have played decent there, and Rodgers just kind of threw them out of that game with 2 INTs, one a pick 6 and one basically a pick 6, and back-to-back plays, just threw them out, gave away all the momentum. They'd probably be a touchdown favorite here, so that would scream to me more of the running game. Packers can control the clock, things like that. Let's see. Allen and Diggs, is that a good play? Allen. Oh yeah, Josh Allen. Sorry, you spelled ALAN, so I was like, who's Allen? Yeah. So I don't go through every single game, but I do. Let's do touch on that, because one of the chalky ones will be Gabriel Davis, the new wide receiver too, because Smokey Brown's out. But I do think Allen and Diggs make a great tandem. I would say risk is with playing the Jets if they get up big. Which usually sometimes you don't worry about, because if they get 28 points quick, then their skill position players usually do it, but it's against the Jets, which makes me nervous. And what I mean by that is if the Bills defense scores or their special team scores, if Singletary or Moss put it in early and they're up 14-0 and Allen and Diggs haven't gotten there yet, maybe they take their foot off the gas and then they're just kind of a middling result, and they really don't need to stress too much about this Jets team, which is just awful. So I do like them. Fantasy, you're obviously playing them. DFS, good tournament plays. Probably not for me for cash, but I'll probably be on them. And then, like I said, Gabriel Davis is going to be up there as one of the more popular plays. So I do like them. Let's see. So we were talking about Packers Texans. Let's move to now. It's the Sunday night game, which is the Seahawks at the Cardinals. I think probably the biggest total on the board right now. While I'm thinking about it, actually, if anyone in Vegas is listening to me, the over on game total for the Chiefs and Broncos, I think, was down to 44. They were worried about snow and wind. That seems to be coming either during or after the game. Free money bet of the week. Take the Chiefs and the Broncos over 44. The Chiefs could probably get there themselves, but I would never bet against a Chiefs offense to not get 30 points. So unless the Broncos just absolutely shit the bed, over under 44 points to me is just screaming at people. People were worried about the wind and snow coming in, which is crazy. It's October, and there's going to be they were worried it was going to be like 5 inches of snow, but that seems to not be coming to fruition. But back to the Sunday night game, Seahawks at Cardinals. I mean, I don't know what this team total's at now. I have it written down as 57. It's going to be more than that, I'm sure, and we don't really need to go into the plays too much because you can just play them all, anyone. But I think a lot of people will still be chasing Drake from last week, and he still has only caught I think he's had one target each week, like one target, not one catch. Obviously, people have seen him break off that 70-yard run. Whenever there's big plays in a primetime game, I usually think the ownership will rise. Him and Christian Kirk are both in kind of the same boat because Kirk only had 3 targets last week. Now he turned it into like 3 catches and 100 yards and 1 or 2 touchdowns. But I will bet against that type of efficiency all day. So those are the only 2, in my opinion, that I might be a little bit hesitant about. But you can obviously play Russ, Lockett, Metcalf, Carson, bring it back with Kyler or Hopkins. I think, to me, how things are shaping up, it's tough, but I think Chris Carson might be my sneaky play there, maybe playing him like with Kyler, just to have a piece of this, because on DraftKings, the main slate usually ends in the afternoon games. They did us a solid when the NFL shifted these around, and we get the Sunday night football game here, which it's going to be fun. I'm gonna make sure I have a piece of that in most of my big tournament lineups because I want to be able to watch that game tomorrow night and know that if you don't have a piece of this and you're barely cashing or right on the bubble, kiss it goodbye, because there'd be a lot of people saving up. And I don't blame anybody for playing Russ, Metcalf, Lockett. This should be a big game. Let me look at the chat here. We got a question here. The best RB play who's now gaining leverage after all the ownership going to Kamara, William, and Bernard. Yep, I agree. Kareem Hunt. I expect him to go way lower now. You have anyone who you think gained value? I agree with you with Hunt. Chris Carson, to me, I think is a sneaky spot when everyone will try to play those 3 that you mentioned, and then maybe try to put in a Russ, Metcalf, or Kyler, Hopkins, or a mix of those. So if you can put in someone like a Carson, and then instead of whoever, it's just obviously going to make your lineup a little bit more unique. So that's something I'm thinking about, and we'll have those. I'm trying to think of the other ones. I've heard some people say, and I don't know if I'll do it yet. I'm not there, so probably outside looking in, but Latavius Murray. So direct leverage off of Kamara. Maybe they use Kamara more in a pass catching role since they've lost their 2 best running or wide receivers. Maybe Latavius gets 15 carries and punches it in. Whoever's running the ball at that Panthers defense is going to gain yardage and hopefully get the touchdowns. People are assuming it's going to be Kamara. I still think Kamara's going to get his points, but maybe you can leverage it where Kamara just has a score that doesn't kill you. Like maybe he gets 25 points, but Latavius gets 20 himself. Then you have an advantage there. So that would be maybe kind of a sneaky one besides Carson. Or I agree with you that Kareem Hunt is probably there. Let's see if there's another one. James Conner, maybe. The Titans have a reputation as being like a good defense, but they're either really good or really bad. And then when you average them out, they're just decent. But to me, the Steelers' offense should be able to scheme around it. So maybe it's going to be a James Conner week. So that's another idea. The Titans are just nothing sexy. It's just sometimes they play up and really shut some people down. Other times they give up 35 points. Oh, we got another question here. What QB to go with this Sunday? Depends on how much you have. With all the value here, you can easily pay up for Russ. Allen, I think, is right under Russ. I know Kyler's at 7,100. He's probably my favorite I'm eyeing right now. If you want to save money, Herbert and Burrow. Herbert's, I think, 6,300, and Burrow, I think, is the cheap one at like 5,500. I really like Burrow's spot. I wish there wasn't so much value elsewhere. I'd probably play him more. I'll still try to get him in some tournaments. There's just so much salary that's going to be left on the table, and the opportunity cost, it's just tough because Kyler, Russ are facing each other in good spots. Josh Allen's playing the Jets, so if he's the one scoring the touchdowns early on, God help the Jets. Rodgers, I think he's probably up there too. He's there. What is the best defense of the week? From a fantasy perspective, not putting in like DFS salary or anything like that, it's clearly the Bills. Jets just have no chance. But if we're going to talk about DFS, my favorites right now are the Washington football team going up against the Dallas Cowboys with 4 of their linemen on injured reserve or not playing. The immobile Andy Dalton, who we saw last week, couldn't do anything. And in DFS, for a defense, even in fantasy football, just regular drafts, you got to get out of the mindset, and it took me a while to do this. I'm not looking at the defense who's might shut out. I mean, obviously that's beneficial, but I'm not looking at the team that's going to goose egg somebody. I'm looking at the team that can generate pressure, make mistakes. Maybe he's getting up, and I think Washington's favored in this game, forces the other team to throw a bit more and just create more pressure, which equals sacks. It can lead to interceptions or a sack, strip, fumble, obviously a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown. So I think the Cowboys will be a little bit better on offense than we saw last week, but I still am not scared of them. I don't think they're going to put up 42, but that Washington defensive line is just too scary. And with them basically playing all backups offensive line, that's who I would be looking at. Also like the Browns going up against, once again, same kind of narrative. Great defensive line going up against a weak offensive line of the Bengals. Burrow they've let him throw like 40, 45 times a game. They're going to continue to let him do that. So that's all I'm looking for is that opportunity. And he's a rookie. They have good talent there. Sheldon Richardson's back. So they're pretty stout there for the Browns. So that's one. And then Chargers at Jaguars is one that I'm also kind of eyeing just because Minshew the Jaguars in general haven't played well since they somehow won the first week, and since then they've realized, oh crap, we're out of the Trevor Lawrence running right now because the Jets are just so awful. The Jets might go 0-16, and 1-15 might not cut it. So the Jaguars might have messed up by winning that one game. Shame on them. And while other chats come in, we'll just segue a little bit more about that Chargers-Jaguars game. Another chalky one, and going back to someone asked best RB play. Another cheap one, Justin Jackson. I believe he's right at 5,000. He's right there with Gio. He could be a good pivot. Obviously, I'm worried that he and Joshua Kelly split, but that's one I'm considering. The Jaguars are just so bad, and the Chargers are favored by 7 here. Tough to really know what could happen because I do like Herbert. Henry's one of my favorite tight ends right now. And I think Keenan Allen's going to be healthy. So all those make sense. It's just to me with the Chargers coach being kind of more of conservative in nature, they get up early, they might just take the air out of the ball, and then Herbert doesn't get his chance to scramble and do great things. He looks like a great quarterback, but he hasn't won yet, so I can see them just securing that lead, trying to milk the clock and get them that moral victory that I'm sure they want, to give their rookie quarterback who's played great in 4 or 5 games, and they've lost by single digits each time, and like in the last minute. So give the kids some confidence. I'm sure they're happy. They're losing from the standpoint they're getting a high draft kit pick and can pair, maybe who knows what they would draft, maybe some O-line help or something, thinking way too far ahead. But they weren't going to be contending for the Super Bowl, but develop the young QB, keep getting some high draft equity. It makes a lot of sense. To me, I think the last thing I'll touch on here, and then we'll just kind of go through the chat. If there's no chat, I'll talk about that chalky build I think everyone's going to be going to. But people always, like I say every week, people play the primetime games. Their ownership's inflated. Monday night we have Bears and Rams. People will be saving a little bit, some spots for them, just so they have that last game. If you're playing the Thursday night through Monday night football slate, obviously. To me, there's just nothing really good about this game except maybe the Rams defense. Sure, Kupp or Woods or Henderson might get there. Allen Robinson should be paired up with Ramsey. There's conceivably some plays, but it's a dart throw. I would just stay away. Save your roster spots for that Sunday night football game with the Seahawks Cardinals. So just a PSA there, in my opinion, is to not worry about that game. Hopefully, if you go to bed Sunday night and you're making money, I think leaving the Monday night game, you'll still be making some pretty good money. So. Let's see. What is the best defense? Oh, I answered that one. So if there are any questions, get them in real quick. I always try to keep this like 30, 45 minutes, so we're right on pace. But I will say, if you, and as my friend here, Garrison, I'm sorry if I butchered your first name, you alluded to, all the ownership is going to main slate, Kamara, Jamal Williams, and Gio Bernard, and that's assuming Aaron Jones is out. But those will be the 3 main. Everyone will play a cheap wide receiver, which would be Gabe Davis, Traquan Smith, or Deontay Johnson. Maybe they'll play 2. Tight end. Who's the chalky? Oh, Cook. I think that'll be chalky. And then the Washington defense. So we have 5 or 6, pretty chalky. And how many do you get? You get QB, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, flex. Defense. So you get 8 spots, and 5 to 6 are going to be really common. Like I said, if you're playing single entry or 3 max tournaments, I like them all, to be honest. So I can't blame you for playing them, but don't play all 5 or 6. To pick 3 or 4 and then leverage elsewhere, and it'll start making your lineups a little bit more unique. So if everyone loves the cheap running back, both. Let's talk about the cheap running backs. Maybe you play Hunt and Carson, and then you play the cheaper running backs. But I've already kind of built one where I paid up at tight end and didn't pay for a wide receiver lower than $5K, and I still have plenty of money to play around with. And still get a good QB. So start thinking of it that angle, because if you pigeonhole yourself with the 5 or 6 chalky ones, your line's probably going to be duplicated, I'm sure you all know this. It seems like when it's that obvious, it can be good for cash, and I'll be having probably those guys in cash. But it's just not going to. It's not going to be It's not going to be the GPP winning score you need. So something to think about. You can obviously leverage straight off of it, like Devontae Adams instead of playing Jamal Williams. Paying up at the positions instead of paying down, things like that. There are different ways to do it, but I think paying up at tight end with Kelsey probably makes the most sense if people are going to play Njoku, play Cook, and I think my third favorite's Henry there. Just some ideas there, because I think just in weeks like this, I think it's going to be profitable if you stick. I do think if you play those guys, you'll make money even in tournaments, but you're not going to win or be like top 1%. You'll be like min cash, which you're not probably playing for tournaments, especially if you're playing like the Millie Maker. You're no chance. If you have 100,000, 200,000 lineups you're competing against, that's going to be the same one you see. Let's see here. No other questions. Let me scan through these games. I think we touched upon the chalky plays. Bills, Cowboys, Steelers. Talk about like I hinted at Deontay Johnson. I think he's 4,200. Makes sense there. But with Gabe Davis at 36 and Traquan at 4,000, I mean, I guess you could play them all, but that's going to be tough. That's really it. So if there are no other questions, then we will cut this a little bit early, around 30 minutes or so this week. But once again, I appreciate you all tuning in Saturday night. This, check me out on goingfor2.com. This is War Room After Dark. And follow me on Twitter at notduckhodges.com. And good luck this week. And thanks for tuning in. Take care.